one of the reasons I moved to Hobart was because I so deeply believe we have a real problem that needed an urgent solution between federal Indian policy and state and local government, is because there is no reservation that exists in a vacuum. Every Indian reservation is co-located on within a county or one or more counties or one or more towns. They are co-located, and it sets an immediate dual governing system, and that are in conflict with each other. The state and county and municipal governments abide by the U.S. Constitution. The tribal governments have their own constitutions, and many, are not synonymous with our U.S. Constitution. So there's an instant problem, dual conflicts, and it can play real hell on the local economy too, which I'll get to in a minute. But I thought if there's one place in the United States, because I've traveled lots of places in the last 15 years, and spoken with lots of community people, and you get a sense of whether they trust or don't trust, or they have confidence in their elected officials. But if there's one zip code or place where we could finally find solutions, I've always thought of the Oneida tribe in my studies as being one of the brighter, more productive, and prosperous tribes in the country. And I thought with a prosperous, bright tribal government and a dedicated local municipality, surely we could come together and find a model that could bring peace and relief to the other 1,360 counties and communities that find themselves co-located on or near an Indian reservation, and find themselves under that dual burden, and find that economic disadvantage, which is really serious. And that leads me into this EPA treatment of states. But we still hope to find that model. But it means minds that disagree with each other coming to the table and hammering something out. And that has not occurred yet. We've had to stand our ground, we've gained our ground, we're kind of eye to eye with the Oneida tribe, but they're not ready to say, okay, let's sit down, let's fight them on. They're not there yet, and maybe one day they will be. The Environmental Protection Agency was the birthchild of President Nixon. And in 1984, between 1986 and 1990, Congress created 5 environmental acts that would be implemented by the Environmental Protection Agency, mandated across all the states across the country. And the 5 acts were the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, Safe Drinking Water Act, Toxic Substance Control Act, and the famous one that Nebraska is struggling with, fungicides, insecticides, where the tribal governments there, who are not farmers by nature, have treated the states for fungicide and pesticides, and are raising hell with farmers in Thurston County, Nebraska, because of treatment of states. When Congress created those environmental acts, it was the states. One of the reasons, once EPA was set up, the states all created their environmental agencies, and it was the state's job to meet all the federal compliances under those environmental acts. States do a real fine job. Every state has an environmental quality agency, or several, or Department of Natural Resources, or the agencies that maintain the natural resources and the clean environment of their state. That's the relationship between EPA and the states for purposes of maintaining the beautiful and natural and clean environment in our country. That's the relationship. So when Congress amended these acts to create treatment of states for tribal governments, it created little redundancies and holes for states to contend with. There was the thought politically, and I will attribute this to the hundreds of Indian lobbyists in D.C., literally on a daily basis. One tribe in Alabama has 20 lobbyists that just live in D.C. This was a political decision because the tribes are sovereign and didn't want the state managing their environment and claim to be the stewards of the land and all that. So we get this treatment as states. My feeling on treatment as states is that it is not treatment as states or treatment similar to states, because the net effect is it replaces state authority. It is treatment superior to states. And I think the whole policy of treatment as states or treatment similar to states cannot stand a constitutional challenge, and I think that challenge will be coming soon. The reason I say that is that the U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 3, but no new state shall be formed or erected within the jurisdiction of any other state. We all know the state boundaries, none of them have changed. But if you're looking at air quality, right here it's air quality. If you're looking at air quality in Wyoming, the state of Wyoming has the ultimate accountability for clean air. And it needs to be in constant ongoing attainment and compliance with EPA. Were somebody having a problem with air anywhere in Wyoming, there's a state agency to call and complain, and that state agency has that authority. In Washington state, there are 12, the state of Washington has 10 clean air authority offices throughout the state, and 10 regions by which they comply with clean air in the urban areas and rural areas of Washington state. If anybody has a problem with air quality in Washington state, there's a nearby clean air authority that will manage that. But politically, tribal governments say, oh, we want to manage our own air on our own reservation. Well, where's the hard science behind that? The Yakima Reservation is 75% Hispanic in its population. I lived there for 16 years. 75% Hispanic, 15% Native American, and 10% Anglo. Wonderful mixed culture, wonderful place to live. And you have to wonder, well, on that reservation it's Hispanic air. There's 75% Hispanic, it must be Hispanic air. And then where's the Amish air? Where's the Irish air? Where's the hard science behind air quality and political decisions based on ethnicity? So when I was doing my doctoral work on federal Indian policy, I did a paper, and it's over on the table, called Ethnic Air. Air and water, they don't understand parcel boundaries, they don't understand reservation boundaries. They just move as Mother Nature intends them. And for an agency to say, oh, here's where the Indian air quality is important, here's where the non-Indian air quality is important. Totally insane, and I think unconstitutional. The other problem is that the first time a tribal government gets treatment of states for one of the environmental laws, in this case air quality, the door is open for treatment of states for water quality, treatment of states for substance control, treatment of states for fungicides and pesticides, so the farmers and cattlemen in the area are suddenly answerable to a government in which they may not participate. And that's the other piece of treatment of states. When a tribal government has a permitting program and a new business is coming in, that new business is answerable to two governments. Now think about the economy here. If I'm a new business person and I'm looking at Fremont County and there's a treatment of states with the dual government, dual permitting system, and maybe there's a great piece of ground I'd like to buy and open up a business or a company, and then maybe there's another piece of ground outside of Fremont County or way far from the reservation where I could also operate my business and answer to just one government. There's a financial and efficiency, cost efficiency question that business owner would be asking. And when that business owner chooses anyway to go on a dually governing system and is willing to absorb those costs, the next knock on the door he gets is, oh, well here, we have to comply with the Tribal Employment Rights Ordinance. We'll tell you who you can hire. These kinds of things really limit new industry and new economies coming in. They do that at the front end of new businesses, and they burden on and strap down the existing businesses and property owners. So this treatment of states was a political decision. It was never a decision based on hard science. It was done as a courtesy to tribal governments to honor their sovereignty. Their sovereignty is a quasi form of sovereignty. Their sovereignty comes from federal recognition. You very seldom hear a tribal government say, we're federally recognized. No, we're a free standing sovereign. True, maybe you think you are, but your federal recognition is the existence of your authority to govern tribal members, enrolled tribal members, and tribal properties. That federal recognition is not accompanied by the ability to govern non-tribal members and non-tribal properties, and that's where the overreaching occurs. And that's where policies like treatment of states, political decisions, and the expansion of programs that allow a tribal government to come out and touch your land, touch your business, touch your life, you know, give you two governments to answer to, one in which you can't even go to the meetings and certainly can't hold office or help with the decision making. It creates just heartbreak and economic harm wherever municipalities and counties are co-located with Indian reservations. It doesn't need to be that way. Surely there is a solution that we're finally getting close to coming to. I don't know what it is. We don't presume to know what it is. But we know that something's not working now. And that there are 566 tribal governments annually subsidized by the American taxpayer. And the BIA is adding to its employee and building its workforce by relaxing the federal recognition requirements for new Indian tribe. As though 566 is not enough. As though somebody in 2014 can say, hey, you know what? I think my ancestors were a tribe once. And that's about going to be the only requirement for federal recognition of new tribes. So the question has to be asked, how many private tribal governments in which the American taxpayer cannot participate, how many of those are we required to annually subsidize as indentured servants? We have no input. We're not consulted with the policy. We have no ability to participate in these private governments that the taxpayer is subsidizing. We have done so with a generous spirit and a generous heart for decades, at least since 1934. For decades, the American taxpayer, the American citizen has a generous spirit regarding American Indians. Generous spirit. No one has ever snivelled about having to annually subsidize these governments. But you have to think now, in the 1800s, when this country was really suffering and struggling and there were no clean hands, you know, Indians were struggling with other Indians and cavalry and settlers. This was a cruel, hard time in the 1800s, and certainly there was a time and place for federal Indian policy. But when 1924 came around, and every American Indian was made a U.S. citizen, we should have been one country then, 1924. But for John Collier, 10 years later, with his wild idea about, oh, let's do it this way. And now we have 566 private tribal governments co-located, burdening the areas in which they are located. And the conflict and pain of neighbors is really in dire straits. Difficult to talk with each other, where for decades folks grew up with each other. So in any event, this treatment as states is a very serious example of federal Indian policy redundancy, economic development with deterrent, absolute deterrent for tribal governments and the other governments. If I'm a good businessman coming in to think of a business located with a tribal government, I have to consider sovereign immunity. I have to consider that if I submit myself to that government and sign some agreements with that tribal government, and something goes cattywampus, I have no recourse. I cannot, if the contract is breached or if the agreement with the tribal government is breached, I have no recourse. They are immune. And I have to consider those things that just double burden the new business or the existing business. So that's